So in this lesson, we'll try to understand what is Bastion service. So Bastion, what is mean by what is the need of Bastion service here? So when we have machines in our network, in our organization network or VNet loan, we have machines. We don't want machines to be accessed directly from internet, because right now the way in the future, in the previous classes, the way we are trying to say is every time we are creating a public IP for these machines, and we are going and doing a remote desktop session, or we are going to PowerShell and do SSH to this machine using public IP. But in organization, it is not recommended to have a public IP for the machines. So the other solution right now, previously organizations started following is they used to configure VPN, virtual private network, and when from which machine, like you are using laptop or a desktop, your VPN will be connected to the machine, and VPN will be configured to the network. And once you are being connected to the VPN, then you will be in a position to connect to the machine. So that is the way usually it's used to be followed. But managing configuring VPN was not an effect. It's a very good solution, and many people are still following it, but it is not. Azure came up with a more better solution for the users who wanted to access the machines over internet only to the people who have access to it. Okay, so yeah, for people who ever access having the access to access the machines only through that, or without using any public IP or directly having connecting to the VM, only to the people who have access, and they have to definitely provide the credentials of the VM. And once they do it, they will be in a position to access it from the browser itself. They don't need to even have from the browser itself. They can actually access the machines. So that is possible through service called Bastion service. So that is why Azure created this service, and that's how Bastion is useful for. You can connect, I mean, when I say connect to machines, you can connect or you can log in into the machines, a Linux machine or a Windows machine using Bastion service from browser itself, from the Chrome browser or an Edge browser itself. You can do it. So let's see how we can configure a Bastion service here. I will create a virtual machine, and I'll create it in C India VM01, and Central India. I'm leaving it. I'm going to choose the image as Windows Server 2000. I can choose Ubuntu also. There is no problem. As of now, I'm choosing this. I'm creating a spot instance. I'm providing the credentials like trainer and Indian at the rate 1234567. Again, I'm just reconfirming my password. Then I'm going inside the disks. I'm leaving it as it is. I'm going to networking options. I'm going to choose this. Delete once the rest are deleted. And here do I have the Bastion service. So I'm just looking, do we have a Bastion service? Okay, previously used to have. Fine. I have to create the machine. Let me go ahead and create the machine. And after that, I'll be finding the option. I'll go ahead and click on create. Let's wait for the machine to be created. So the virtual machine got deployed, and we can see that the virtual machine got deployed. So the usual way of connecting to the VMs is, the way we do it is we copy the public IP of the machines, and we will try to do SSH into we'll do into, this is a Windows machine, so we'll do an RDP. So I'll open remote desktop session connection, remote desktop connection software, and I'll paste my IP address and I click on connect. and I provide my credentials, trainer at the rate, sorry, Indian at the rate 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, and I connect to this machine. So this is how I'm connecting to machine. As this machine is this machine is having public IP, and as my laptop is connected to internet, I'm able to connect to this machine directly. But organizations, as I mentioned, organizations don't prefer to have public IP for the machines directly. Why? Because if you have 100 machines, you will have 100 public IPs. Is it recommended? No. It's not recommended to have 100 public IPs. It's also not recommended to have public IP configure public connection to all the machines. So for that, what the mandatory thing, the other solution to have this VPN. We will remove the public IP. How can we remove? First, let's remove the public IP for the machines. So I'll go into the network interface. I can go into the IP configurations, and I will disassociate the public IP. I removed the public IP from this machine. Now, how can I connect to this machine in this case? When I remove the public IP, I can't connect to this because my machine is not connected to, my laptop is not connected to any of the network which machine is connected. So you can use for that a VPN, which is a point to site. In the later videos, when we go into networking concepts, we'll see how we can set up a point to site network and everything. But in this video, I'm just saying that we usually use VPN, where I have to first install that VPN, and my machine has to be connected to that VPN, and similar that VPN has to be connected to the network, and that way I can actually I can directly from the private IP address I can copy connect from my local laptop. But this point of time, as I'm my machine, my internet is not connected to this private IP address, so I can't connect to this machine at this point of time. But VPN is a older solution which organizations follow. The newer solution is enabling Bastion service. So how did I go? I go into the machine and I can see here Bastion. I'll click on Bastion and it'll ask me to first configure a Bastion service. So I will go and configure Bastion service. So it's asking in Central India. So we configure to an entire network. So I have to just look at few options. The virtual network where I wanted to enable is this one. To associate, it must contain a subnet at least. So I have to, Bastion needs a separate subnet. Only one subnet is there, and that subnet is being utilized for machines. So it needs a separate subnet. So here I'm creating one separate subnet for the machines where I'm writing that Bastion subnet and naming this as, and I'm going to click on OK. So Bastion subnet is got created. I can now choose uh, subnet with, okay. It is asking us to create an Azure bash with a subnet name called Azure Bastion subnet. So let me create that one. Azure Bastion subnet. With that name, it wants to have a subnet. So I just created that one. Now, now you see, it is allowing it. And I just created that subnet here with the same and so name. This is good. Now to have, but Bastion will have a public IP for itself. Okay. So it will create a, for Bastion, it will create a public IP which will connect to internet. And so what is happening in the, actually, you have a virtual network currently. In that virtual network, we have a machine, and when I created a machine, I have a public IP, but after that, went and removed the public IP for this machine. Now, when I'm configuring a Bastion service, I'm configuring a Bastion service for a VNet, and in that VNet, I created a separate subnet. This machine is in a separate subnet called default subnet. Now, this Bastion service which I'm creating is in the this is a subnet. This is the name of this subnet, Azure Bastion subnet in this VNet, and I'm creating a public IP for this service. So through this, the Bastion is actually connected to internet, and through this service you will access these machines. So we'll look at it. How are we doing it? So let me complete that configuration. I will go. So there is no need to change anything here. I'll go for create, and it is going to take around 8 minutes. So let the configuration deployment complete. Let's wait for a couple of minutes. I'm going to pause the video. So the Azure Bastion service has been configured. Now I'll go. This virtual machine doesn't have any public IP address, but let me connect to this Bastion service even they don't have public IP. So how will I do it? As I configured Bastion service for this network, in this network, and that is in this so and so subnet, Azure Bastion subnet. I will go back right now and click on Bastion. So as I have access to VM, because I was the person who created it, that's the reason why I have access. But in your organization, there will be thousands of users who will have access to the same subscription, but they might not have access to the VM. So in that kind of case, unless they have access, they can't log in to this VM. Okay, so people who ever have access to the VM only can log in. And first to also log in, you need to know the credentials of the VM. That is, one is this, the credentials are trainer, and the password is Indian @ 1234567, and you click on connect. Previously, how did we connect? We opened remote desktop session, and I pasted my URL and I logged in. Right? I opened this one and I logged in. Now you know to have that way. You can just log in from your browser. You see, I logged in from the browser. I logged in from the browser to this machine. So this, when you see this is running in this VM. So it is C India -VM01. So Bastion service is sending this RDP packets and everything to HTTPS. So you're right now when you send, you are clicking on this button and everything. So everything is actually through HTTPS. The entire messages are going to the Bastion service, and that is Bastion service is sending the connected to this VM. So using the Bastion solution which Azure is providing, you are able to do RDP, you are able to do SSH into the machines. So if it's a Linux machine, you can SSH. If it is a Windows machine, you are able to RDP into this. So whatever you wanted to perform, you can perform here uh, through the browser itself. Previously, I was opening a remote desktop session and everything, and I was able to do it. So if I look at properties, so whatever you changes you are doing, you're is going to make it happen. So if I'm installing IIS in this, I can install IIS machine, IIS and that and everything. So this is how right now organizations are preferring to connect to the VMs. So when you wanted to connect the VMs, you should have access to the Azure first of all, so that you can actually see in virtual machines a C India -VM. So we'll get into, when we get into the Active Directory, and when we talk about RBAC, we will talk about how some users can only see it, some users can't see the machine, whoever is access. So once they have the access, when they can see that machine and have the access to it, then they have to have the credentials of the machine to log in, and once they're able to click on connect from the browser itself, they will be able to connect to the machine and make changes. This is how Bastion service works.